Session to order with Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Let me just get this screen visible. Do we have anyone who wishes to speak, not on agenda items?
Oh, Mike Gator asked me to speak on his behalf. No, I'm just kidding.
Seriously, Peter?
Too soon.
Okay, seeing that there is no one, we will start off with mandate IA septic systems upon property transfer. I know
Starting with that.
it's number 2.
Oh, yeah.
Public comments. Yes, it's number 1. Yeah, I know that Albert is not here today, and was not here last week, but the town board work session prior to that had asked him to pull together a list. So I guess.
So this
We'll
is a
have to read it.
conversation that I should probably step out of then, if we're talking about mandating IA systems.
Yeah.
Is this one of those?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Off you go.
Does you have to step out of a conversation? I guess.
I mean, if my input leads to a decision that could financially benefit my parents' company in some fashion, then
Mhm.
probably,
Okay,
right?
just to be sick.
Just, yes.
Yes.
Problem is,
I
I'm
wouldn't want.
interested in your opinion. That's my problem.
Well, so there's, what we've done in the past is that we've had just purely a discussion about the technical aspects of how the process functions.
Mhm.
So if you guys want to talk about whatever your concepts are, and then you come up with a list of how does the system currently function, then I can come back and answer questions about the process, procedure, regulation, and just keep it at that, but not weigh in on whether or not we can regulate, like what the regulations would be or how we would enforce or what we would
And
mandate.
that's perfect because where we are is just trying to figure out
Mhm.
what we want it to be.
Right, exactly.
What are the issues?
Yes,
So,
yes.
so next phase.
Okay, so
Yes.
I'll step out
Mhm.
and you guys, okay,
Okay.
and then you can text me when you're ready.
Okay.
Well, unfortunately, since Albert isn't here to kick this off,
Yeah, well, actually, let me just step in one thing. I just was writing, I always write down from like attendance meetings in case. I
Sure,
talk to
go
you
ahead.
later. I do notice that Alice Dupree is on here, and Alice, I'd sent you an email yesterday that I was going to try and put the Monantic Creek Keepers WQI request on the agenda, but I didn't get to it early enough, so it's on for next week. So if that's the only item that you're here for, I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sorry about that. But
That's
it's definitely next week, and
Okay.
the documentation will be circulated to the town board so we can all review it.
anyone
Okay,
else?
thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'm not trying to kick anyone else off. I just figured that might be why Alice was here. Okay, so getting back to, yeah, I thought one of the things we'd start off with is when we do require IA systems. So section
Okay.
4310 of our code, it's actually 4310.4, says that they are required for the following projects within the town of Shelter Island. All new residential construction with greater than 1,500 square feet of living area. Any septic system upgrade required by Suffolk County Department of Health Services. So if someone goes for a building permit to do a renovation and their system is deemed to be undersized for bedroom count, or it's deemed to be a failed system and it needs, it's a cesspool system, it needs to be upgraded, then that's a Suffolk County mandated system, and therefore they are required to put in an IA system. And some of these we put into place, this law was put into place in 2018. Suffolk County has actually caught up with some of this with us. They didn't have as many mandates as we did for IA systems, but they've caught up. And then any expansion or renovation of a single family residence, a multifamily residence, or any other building capable of being used as a residence that A, has an existing non-conforming septic system as determined by Suffolk County Department of Health Services, increases the SFLA by 25%, increases the number of bedrooms as defined by Suffolk County Department of Health Services that exceeds the allowable number authorized by a permit previously issued by the Suffolk County Department of Health Services, which again speaks to bedroom count. So those are what we originally what we put in. I know Albert at the time wanted to go further with, there were things such as all building permits, all property transfers, and we couldn't, the town board at the time in 2018 couldn't agree on those.
I mean, thank you for reading that list, because that was very helpful.
Oh,
And
Wait, Stephen, did you want to weigh in on something on code? Did I miss
Yeah, I'm
it?
sorry. Just want to throw in there that as you referenced, Suffolk County in 2021 had issued their own mandates for when IA systems have to come in. So basically, one is a little obviate. 43-10.4A1 is obviated a little bit because we say, any new construction greater than 1,500 square feet would need an IA system. Now Suffolk County says any new construction needs an IA system. And then also, as far as like renovation/addition, they require a IA system for major reconstruction. So, and their definition of major reconstruction is the cost of a project exceeding 50% of the market value of the structure. So that sort of plays into 43-104A3 as well. So I just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay, thank you.
thank you. Well, that's a long list and covers a lot of the activity that's going on out there.
Mhm.
So I think what the conversation today is about is how can we fill some of the gaps,
Mhm.
cover some of the smaller pieces of the pie, to promote the installation of IA systems to protect our aquifer. Like requiring installation of IA systems upon sale of residential property sounds a little scary and big
Mhm.
brotherish, but most of it's already covered.
Mhm.
And when you properly limit a mandate and bring it into sharp focus, it can be a really powerful tool to achieve whatever it is you want to achieve. So I hope today's discussion will be about the best way to sharpen and focus a tool like this so it properly works for our community without overly burdening our community as well. Because we do realize that, someone building a new 6,000 square foot house, it's not the biggest burden to require them, which Suffolk County will do, to put in an IA system. But if someone who owns a house wants to sell it to their kids, then it becomes a different ball of wax. So
Yes.
we should talk about some of these key elements. I mean, in my head, and I know Albert, and I'm really sorry he's not here because he feels
we
very strongly about
Yes,
this.
and we will continue this conversation
Yeah.
once he returns.
Yeah. And we don't necessarily agree on all the points,
Mhm.
but I mean, I really think we should try to target arm's length third-party transactions where there's money on the table, where someone is selling their house to a totally different third-party person coming from wherever, and there's a closing and there's money on the table.
Mhm.
We should exempt transfers to immediate family members, at least discuss exempting
Mhm.
transfers to immediate family members and things involving inheritance.
Mhm.
If your parents pass away and
Mhm.
unfortunately and you are, a house is dropped in your lap, and you may or may not have the means to do this. So we
Mhm.
should be sensitive to that. We should also talk about whether or not we want to exempt transfers to LLCs or trusts,
Mhm.
because I don't fall into that camp. I don't think we should exempt those transfers.
Mhm.
If you're doing estate planning where you're transferring your house to a trust or an LLC, I think you can put an IA system in there if you don't already have one. And we should also discuss, should this apply to commercial? At the moment, I'm feeling that this is a residential thing, and the commercial area is really covered by Suffolk County pretty well.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure we need to wrestle that one. But let's talk about it. Also, do we want to establish like priority red zones for this? Do we want to target the center, for instance, where, any IA system installation, can be subject to this, or certainly subject to receiving grant money. But that's a whole nother conversation, but it should be
Yes.
wrapped up in this.
Yeah, no, and I was gonna bring that up too, is that we have historically, and I didn't pull the section or whether it's just in our policy to not pay for mandated systems. Because when we first started this, and I pulled up the numbers, because I have my lovely spreadsheet that where I track what we've done over the years. And in the early years, especially when this legislation was drafted, and we talked about not funding those transfers, 2018, the funds that we had available for future projects was 371,000 in 2018. In 2019, we were down to 297,000. Then the pandemic hit, and in 2021, 2022, and even today, we've got like $2 million that's available for funding projects. So we've lowered at one point from 15,000 to 6,000, the grants. Then we've taken it back up to 12,000 plus 4 or plus 5 or 9, depending on if you have to relocate your well, if you're putting in a pressurized
Just-
drain field. So we're kind of like trying to increase the incentive for people to do this voluntarily. But if we start to mandate some of these other ones, do we want to restructure making funding available? And I know I watched the WQI meeting that I missed a week and a half ago, and we were speaking to that as well. So,
And that's what the money's there for.
yeah,
And
Yeah.
we actually have a decent amount of it now, so.
yeah. So there's a whole bunch of stuff. Stephen, I see you have your hand raised.
Yeah, and so I just wanted to put this in a more global context. So of the East End towns, East Hampton was the first one to jump into these mandates, and that was like in 2017, and it was right around the time with the WQI vote to allow money to be spent up to 20%. So they were the first ones. Then Southampton followed. Brookhaven, they also have certain mandates, but it should be noted that Riverhead and Southold do not have local mandates for IA systems. They just defer to the county. But East Hampton and Southampton have also partnered up together to try to get these IA systems in the ground. So I think if we went with the upon transfer, Shelter Island would be taking the lead locally in making it a priority to get IA systems in the ground, and I think that might be a good thing.
First mover's advantage.
Stephen or Christina, could you do some legwork for us for East Hampton and Southampton, just what their legislation has for mandates, just to see like if there's things out there that we're not thinking of that they have already thought through?
Yeah, no, it's similar to what we have, because I have a feeling that we copied them when we adopted ours. So it's in kind. So ours would be the strictest. But what Southampton does, and also Brookhaven, is, and Ben has referenced it, they have different zones like high priority, medium priority. So they have geographical areas that are high priority. So you must, like, their mandates only apply to those areas. So it exempts certain geographical areas. I don't think we have the luxury of exempting certain geographical areas from these mandates, but
But also, I also think we need to be careful about putting, undue financial burdens on people. And we have to have that consideration at the top of our minds as we discuss this.
Yeah, so
They want-
in their WQI project plan, Southampton, had some empirical data that certain areas of the town are more susceptible to nitrogen infiltration. And also if you're in the Aquifer Protection Overlay District. So those were high priority areas, but I would say, I'm not a scientist, but the entire island here is a high priority.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's the start of the conversation.
Mhm. Okay, so from our list here, we've got third-party transfers, yes. Immediate family member transfers, no. I'd like to just think about that one, because immediate, like father,
Yeah,
mother.
what's immediate?
Yeah, I mean, I know like a young couple that was able to buy from an aunt. Like, and they, like, that would have not happened, if they had to like add on another burden of another 35,000,
Mhm.
like that might not have happened for them. And the house would have been sold to a third party.
Yeah, and that's a real, like I said,
Yeah.
these burdens, we gotta be really
Yeah,
cognizant of them.
yeah, no on inheritance, transfers.
But
to
also, if you, as you discussed, you may be able to, diffuse that a little bit by increasing funding. So say if you have a mandate for a transfer, you can say, if it's to a family member, that you would be you'd be able to apply for grants and not be forestalled.
Mhm.
Yes. That could be the answer to
Mhm. Yeah.
that. Did we talk about exemption to LLCs and trusts and
Mhm.
things? No exemption, sorry.
Mhm. Yeah, that one. That one's a little bit of a tough, like I would have to think that one through. Like part of me is like, yes, because LLCs can then, you can sell the interest in the LLC and it never shows up as a property transfer. So so catching it when that happens.
When that happens.
Because then there may
Interesting.
not be a transfer down the road, so. Yeah. I know you've got your hand up, Peter. I'm trying to decide whether or not like this will eventually go to legislation, and so I haven't been allowing public comment on stuff that goes to legislation, so.
Yeah, so this would go to legislation.
Yeah, and so there would be a public hearing, yeah.
Correct, but I do see we have a member of WQI. He would be exempt if you wanted to
Yes, I.
chime in.
Somebody has to do it, and what if, stuff like that.
Yeah, we've already
Yeah.
started to, like Benjamin and I were talking this morning, it was like, within 2 years and stuff like that, so, but I
And
don't,
if somebody sells within 2 years, then
Well, the burden runs with the land probably, so.
yeah,
Or it should run with the land, and it was, whoever buys it takes on that burden.
so if somebody sells it in 23 months, then the new person has 30 days to do it.
Well,
we have to work all that out.
Yeah.
There's the devil's in the
and
details.
it's not coming out of the blue, it's there, they know about it.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, well-
ignorance of the law is no excuse.
We may want to dovetail our previous conversation of updated CO with this, meaning upon transfer, you need an updated CO, and you can't get your updated CO until you get have proof that you installed the IA system.
Mhm.
That might hold up the transfer though, because,
Sellers.
No, you need to get the CO anyways in order for that.
yeah, but if you, I mean, it takes a while to put these in.
Oh, no, I think what Stephen's saying is Stephen, go back, because I may be misinterpreting what you're actually saying.
Yeah, no. So we were talking about potentially requiring updated COs upon transfer. So you would purchase the property and you would have a certain time period where you would have to procure an updated CO for the property. It could be written one of two ways. One, you can't have the transaction until you procure the updated CO, or you have a certain time period to get the updated CO for the property. It was just something to think about as a way to monitor and ensure that these IA systems are put in after.
Although I recently was the executor for an estate, and I did have to have the building department come in, and they went through, and it's like, oh, that, you need CO detectors here, there, everywhere. You need to pull up some irrigation hosing that was in a section of the property. So wasn't, I don't know if I got an updated CO, but I did need the building department to come in.
No, it's not required. Like if it's an all cash transaction, typically there is no.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was gonna say, if there's a financial institution involved, they're gonna require,
Correct.
Okay.
and that'll
Not always. Not always.
kind of, ooh, I wanna know what bank to use.
Okay. All right.
So with the
Do you want
mandated,
to come up and introduce your,
Introduce yourself.
yes.
James Ackland speaking for myself,
No, speaking,
but I guess I have to speak for the WPI to some degree. Is it anticipated that this trigger of land transfer would be not eligible for a grant?
That's something that we need to investigate further, like,
Right.
I guess currently it wouldn't be.
yeah, currently.
If you mandate it, then it's,
Then it's mandated,
not,
it's
yeah,
not.
but we may want to change
you
the
know,
mandating.
We may mandate it and then say, in this circumstance, under this mandate, you can apply for a grant.
Mhm.
Yeah, all mandates wouldn't be created equal. So there'd be certain mandates that you can seek grants for.
Yeah.
it's some degree it falls back to politics. I mean, if somebody has the stomach to say that if it's a mandated thing, there's no grant, but on the other hand, if you say, okay, there's a grant, we're making you do this, but somebody's gonna pay for
Mhm.
it, that's great. The one problem with that is that I guess you'd still be eligible for the county and state grant for this. So if, let's say, we averaged at 15,000 for a grant or something like that, we were paying, so there wouldn't be that many grants available for the money that we have. I mean, so I guess
$2 million.
$2 million would be 130 septic systems,
Mhm.
which, we put in maybe 75 or something like that now that the grants have paid for, and I think there's 300 or so.
Yeah, I've
on
got
the island.
60 that I need to double check my spreadsheet, but we spent just shy of $600,000
on
for
70.
60, I had, my number count was 60.
60?
We've issued 98.
But it hasn't all been
Correct, there's 38 that still have to fit, to install.
self-included. So, there has to be some way to get more of these in the ground, but on the other hand, you can't lose sight of, the IA system is a great vehicle, but it only deals with nitrogen. I mean, there's lots of other projects out there that you may want to husband your money for, so it's a difficult thing. I know that Al is very, gung ho about, having upon every transfer.
Mhm.
Certainly some exceptions, within the families or whatever, and I'm not sure the LLC thing, I guess has to have a little more thought.
Mhm.
There's not that much money, is my point, to, if you're gonna give grants.
That's true. But this is not the whole pie. This is kind of a small piece of the pie, so.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, but Stephen's comment about not all mandates are created equal.
Yeah.
So we'll have to parse that out a little bit.
Exactly. Because the money is there to encourage
Mhm.
the installation of ice systems,
Mhm.
so we're just trying to encourage it.
Yes, yes,
Great.
yeah. So, and the tack that we were taking a number of years ago was the voluntary ones, there was the carrot, and then the mandated ones were the stick.
Yeah.
So how much do we want to put both into the mix? And also, what does it do for the WPY as they try and review these? And we need to be very clear on what can be grant funded and what can't be, so that your committee is not struggling with,
Yeah.
well, this is sort of here and this is sort of,
And their
The goal
input.
line has to be well defined.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
No, the WQI input's gonna be critical.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right.
All right.
Anything else with the two of us? No,
Nope, nothing from me.
good, okay. We can tell Meg to come back in.
Meg Larson, come on down.
Yeah, the next item is proportionality lot size legislation.
Me again, huh?
Actually, no, I think that, Meg had some stuff too.
Oh, that's right. No, this is Meg.
Yeah, you're
You're not always.
on doc fees. But I've got some stuff on doc fees too. Second two. And I had, I'm still in the middle of watching last week's work session I missed to see what your initial discussion was, so I'm a little flat-footed, but
We didn't like go into it much. Really, what I did was I just kind of went over what the spreadsheet had in it and if they had any questions. And then
we didn't really get in depth on numbers or anything like that.
so one of the questions I had for you guys was going through the spreadsheet. Right, I guess I should back up a little bit. The intention of when I went through to create this was that we were starting to get all these complaints about properties that weren't necessarily 6,000 square feet, were close to 6,000 square feet, but were on smaller lots. So, there was complaints about 7 Sheepwood Avenue. There's complaints about the 18 Bowditch Road property. There's been, and I'm trying to think of other properties. So if there's anything in your head that you think of and you're like, that one stands out to me as being large for where it is, let me know, because I'm trying to do a comparison of the SFLA of these structures based on the lot size and kind of the scale that I've created to figure out, kind of which option would be the most beneficial for what the goal would be, which would be to kind of prevent what people are complaining about, which is just oversized homes. I mean, the original, the way we got into the large home moratorium, and it's a residential home moratorium for things that are excessively large, so over 6,000 square feet, was that we got at least 5 applications in 2 years for homes that were really large. A lot of them were on larger acreages, like there was one on 6 acres, there's one on 4 or 5 acres, but then we also got some that, like, for example, 3 Oak Tree, everyone's like, it's huge, it's on 1.8 acres, and it's not quite 6,000 square feet, it's 5,998.
But that's true. I think the pothole here is this SFLA thing. I know we've had the conversation about gross and we've stiffened the fines, but yeah, if it's 5,999 and then there are 2 accessory buildings.
Well, no, it
No,
includes all the
it includes
accessory
everything.
buildings.
Yeah.
It's the conditioned space, but the thing is, because it went through, the process that we had set up didn't really give a means for denial. Like a special permit is kind of a given that it's allowed, you just need to get the permit. So the area variance will change that. So some of these larger things will have to get that variance, which is harder to do. But I'm looking more at the things that seem disproportionate to the character of the community around them. So for example, 18 Bowditch Road, and I pulled the plans from the building department not too long ago. That new building is 4,468 SFLA, right? So, and that's on 0.7 acres. So when you look at kind of the spreadsheet I made, 0.7 acres would fall into that range of like half acre to 0.75 acres. So, according to like 3 of the options here, that wouldn't be allowed. They'd have to go for an area variance. So that would make it harder. So I'm trying to figure out a way to make it so that the building is proportional and scaled appropriately for the different neighborhoods. So we don't end up with all these summer cottages getting torn down and massive homes coming up. One of the other ones I looked at was in Montclair, the big house on Montclair. That is just big for the space, but that's on a larger lots too. So in doing this, I feel like it would probably have a stronger effect on kind of maintaining the size of structures in the lot than the pyramid would. So I would like to look at it as maybe this or the pyramid, because pyramid's not going to restrict the size on a property. So I want to try to look at this as maybe an alternative to that.
But why necessarily an alternative? Why, one thing we discussed last week is maybe they work together.
Right, and
And I think since we set that public hearing last night, I think we leave the pyramid alone for the moment, see what comes of the public hearing in May, and then maybe we'll be a little further down the road with drafting something on
Right.
this.
but I guess what I'm looking for from you guys is how do you feel about this? Is there an option here that you think would be appropriate? As far as if we were to go a proportionality route? You know,
I like the direction this is going. I'm not sure it's necessarily a full alternative to the pyramid law, but it is certainly a great companion piece. And I like this a lot, actually.
Yeah, I think it might be more effective.
yeah, I mean, I think it would be very effective.
You know my other question, Meg, right?
No, what's your other question?
B1 and B. But I mean, there's not a lot of it and,
Well, this would apply to all.
oh, it does.
This is island-wide, this is
Okay.
all zoning, this is purely based on
My
acreage.
mistake.
So, that, it's not selective in that sense. It impacts everybody the same based on your lots. So, I mean, that's,
And what's your vision of the ultimate cap? Like, what's? the
well, we're
top end?
setting the ultimate cap at 5,999
Mhm.
SFL.
through, right? Because we're doing that, that's what's up right now for to close the large home moratorium.
Right.
So if that's the cap, then that's the cap. So I'm not
Mhm.
proposing to exceed the cap. I'm just proposing to make it so that you don't have 6,000 square feet or 5,998 square feet on a quarter acre.
Well, maybe the question is, since we're gonna take a deep dive on this, do we also add in a gross square footage discussion again as well?
We can look at it. I mean, if you look at all the neighboring communities, the gross square footage numbers, you guys
Looking at me
don't like. So, the realistic, a realistic look at gross, like, I mean, you could do that after this as a whole nother argument, because that's
Okay.
gonna be a much bigger discussion, because the numbers that would be realistic for gross square footage are much larger than the numbers you would use for SFLA, and people are having trouble processing those numbers and
Yes.
understanding what their relationship is to actual construction, so, I call it Peter.
Since it's going to
What are
legislation, I kind of shut them down on the last, this would be,
Okay.
yeah.
I wasn't sure.
You have to call James. James has to tell us.
I had to
No.
shut him down. We can't even call him James because it's not a WQI matter, so.
Exactly.
That's why I was checking.
Stephen had his hand up.
Yeah, so what, if the town board likes this idea in theory, what we can come up with is like a substandard lot law that will have basically its own bulk schedule for substandard lots and incorporate this floor area ratio into that. So Southold Town has a non-conforming lot law, and again, in essence, it does have its own bulk schedule. So the setbacks and lot coverage are different than what a typical lot in that zoning district would have. So I think we can do a lot with this and have each substandard lot can have its own regulations that are applicable to it, and we could have this floor area ratio. And back to pyramid, it works in other towns because in other towns, the setbacks are smaller. We have such large setbacks in this town that the pyramid law really isn't going to solve the problem. So I think you really should explore this as an alternative. And I think it would do quite well.
So I I agree with you. I think that then what we would do is, we'd have to look at the zones a little more closely because, you know, most of the zoning is 1 acre, but double A is 2 acre minimum zoning. So there are going to be some standard lots in double A or A, I think, but I'll look through it. I'll figure it out. Actually, there may not be. I'm scanning it now and it looks actually fine.
And what, the way they do it, they have their own bulk schedule based on lot size,
Right.
not on the underlying zoning district.
Okay, that makes sense then. Yeah, so then that's
Yeah.
what I'm thinking of. Okay.
Yep.
All right, so we can develop something like that, and then once we have it outlined, we can discuss it
Mhm.
as a group.
Yeah, so I think when I pulled up the spreadsheet, it was like less than a quarter acre, 3,500 SFLA. And then between quarter and a half, 4,000. Between half and 3/4, 4,500. And 5,000. Between 3/4, 1 acre.
Yeah, here I can
Yeah,
share
that's
it.
pretty tight.
It is,
Mhm.
yes.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
I
it
remember,
is. It's
Stephen,
not-
you had shown us something a while ago, but like the gradations from another town were
Yeah,
just
it's East
like,
Hampton, I think, Stephen.
No, it was some village.
Sagaponic? I think Sagaponic had one.
yeah.
No,
it was-
no, Sagaponic has a basic 4. You're talking about the one where it was like an extensive list.
Yes.
Yeah,
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 yeah, I did
That
not
was
like that.
it's the village of Irvington.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, yes.
So I did
They
bigger
got nothing but
benchmarks.
small non-conforming lots in Irvington.
Yeah. Yeah, so I like something that's like in the increments of a quarter acre.
Mhm. And then I did do a smaller breakdown. So it's like,
Yes, I thought that
Um,
was too much.
and you could do that by, because it, you know, we always talk about a builder's acre with 40,000 square feet, but an actual acre is more than 40,000 square feet. So I did break it down into square feet. So if we wanted to do that square foot, this is a square foot, and it tells you like a quarter acre is 10,890 square feet. So I did all that breakdown. So if we wanted to do it that way, and then you just have smaller increments, you can.
Was that option 2 you're talking about?
If you go to smaller breakdown in the tab,
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, why isn't it showing that same for you?
I got this from your email.
Click summary again. Because that's the summary tab. And then smaller breakdown doesn't show. Oh, yeah, it does. There it goes. Now it's going. Yeah, I don't think you had clicked it all the way.
Oh.
See? So then it does, it breaks down everything between a quarter acre and a half acre by certain
In the
increments.
total.
And so then you kind of know exactly how much nonconformity you're creating too, because part of the goal is not necessarily to create a ton of nonconformity, and it's not to be punitive, but it's to kind of maintain the community character in the different areas. So I don't necessarily think we should set a standard that creates a lot of nonconformity, because then that means that, we're looking to reduce or, I don't know, somehow change the character, but something that creates, is expected to create some nonconformity,
Right.
but not necessarily overwhelming nonconformity.
And like Salpo gives you more generous setbacks and coverage. So for non-conforming lots. And then I think the trade-off would be smaller houses if you were going to give the benefit of having different setbacks. So
Right.
I think once the town board agrees on the numbers, then we can put that into a draft legislation and it could start kicking that around. I think, it'd also be prudent to have Joe at some point come in and speak to this.
Yeah, because he can do some,
Yeah, he
with
can
the
do some.
software that he's got, do some
Yeah.
drafting for us.
He's working on
Yes,
some examples for us now.
yes.
Yeah, all
Uh-huh.
right. So when Albert gets back, we'll go over this again.
Yes, yeah, why don't we, yeah, because you're not going to be here next week, but Albert will be back, so we could just rehab this conversation to include him.
Okay.
And then if you get a chance, I'll re-forward this to you, if you get a
Yes.
chance to say like which of the options, so that maybe we can start to have Stephen draft something for when all of us are, here
That'd be
on the
great.
30th.
Yeah, I just tried to find it and I couldn't. So if you could
I'll-
resend
yeah,
it to
I'll
me.
forward it to you because I just.
And I kind of created two different options already. So when you look at it in the summary, it has like a larger breakdown of quarter acre, half acre, 3/4 acres. And then if you go to the smaller breakdown, it breaks down even the increments between a quarter acre and a half acre even more. So see which one you feel more comfortable with. And it also tells you what nonconformity will create with each scenario. I think option 4 doesn't make sense because it creates almost no nonconformity, which means it's over and above all the things that are there.
Yeah.
So I looked at options 2 and 3 as the most reasonable. Option 1 is, I think, a little too restrictive.
Yeah.
But options 2 and 3 kind of make more
Mhm.
sense.
And I agree with you. I mean, I'm not afraid of nonconformity, but I don't think we should be creating overwhelming amounts of it.
Right, I don't want it to
Yeah,
don't think
become.
it's-
Yeah, because I don't want it to be punitive. No one's done anything wrong. We're just trying to make sure that we don't end up completely built out with 5,999 square foot homes everywhere.
Yeah.
And it should be noted, though, that by virtue of them being smaller in the minimum lot size, they are non-conforming. So you're not
Right.
creating non-conforming, they're inherently
Right.
non-conforming. And you're just trying to ameliorate any harms of that non-conformity.
Right.
Yeah, and we also I mean, it's unlikely that we'd be overwhelming. I presume that, again, a variance for this would go to ZBA.
Mhm.
So we don't want to create so many new applications to the ZBA, but then again, how many in the non-conforming? With non-conformity are going to be all doing renovations, additions,
Right.
et cetera, in the same year, and immediately.
Yeah.
So it may not be as bad as we think.
Yeah. And when you look at the spreadsheet, if you go, if you're curious about what kind of nonconformity is created in an area, you can look through the individual data for each acreage. So like for a quarter acre, you can look at it and you can see, okay, it's 99% in the heights. We already know that.
Yeah.
And then it also shows you like the high end SFLAs and the low end SFLAs, which brought up another thing that I had thought of, and it's kind of with this, which is reducing or eliminating the minimum square footage someone can build. Because right now we have that the smallest structure you can build is 1,200 square feet, but 850 of it has to be on the first floor. Okay, well then why can't you just have an 850 square foot home? So, when I was looking at going over what Stephen gave us for the bulk regulation for the large home moratorium, I was like, well, couldn't we also just eliminate that minimum at the same time? But that's something that,
Yeah.
that would be another change that we'd have to probably go back to public hearing for.
Mhm.
But I was like, you'd want to encourage people to build smaller, not larger.
Yeah.
Well, you don't want to stop them if they want to build a smaller house or a tiny home.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's regulations. So the New York State Building Code has regulations for tiny homes. I mean,
Yeah.
and then at least you have a structure that's electrically certified and it's got proper
Mhm.
plumbing and health department
And
and.
if that's what they want,
Mhm.
I think, it's weird. but-
But if that's what they're comfortable with, it works. Yeah, so we'll bring this up with Albert too, but when you get a chance, Ben, look it over. Pick the ones that you think would work, and then I can work with Steve on coming up with the legislation
Okay,
so that we have something hard to look at.
okay.
Let me just anchor this in the timeline. I accidentally closed share.
Did we finish?
Oh, no, just the timeline.
Oh.
I'm always every meeting, I'm constantly looking at our spreadsheet to see where we are with everything. I think the last time I looked, we had 9 things in process, and yesterday we moved 5 of them. We set public hearings for.
Yeah.
So we're
The next board meeting.
starting to, yeah, we're starting.
Crushing it.
Yeah, we're starting to really this is a good thing.
We are crushing it.
Proportionality, lot size legislation, okay. Yeah, I had that we were going to discuss last week, this week, and was hoping for actually, no, I was off a week. But yeah, that we would start to have legislation to review on the 23rd, but it looks like that would really be the 30th when we're all back.
Okay.
And whether it be possible to set a public hearing on, probably not, with just reviewing the legislation on May 6th. But yeah, with that, what I was trying to do was seeing if I could get that to coincide with the pyramid law and the large house law. Because the moratorium has to end, like it's June 25th or June 26th. So I kind of wanted to like stack those all up if possible, but we'll see. If we have to wait another 3 weeks and at least get the large house law and the moratorium sunsetted, we can do
Yeah.
that.
Okay.
Okay, I'll update this. Okay. That's it on that topic. Yep. All right, we did close the large home legislation public hearing yesterday. So it's on the agenda. And one of the comments that Pam Demarest brought up was that it was not clearly stated that this SFLA included conditioned accessory structures. So Stephen circulated this morning a draft. Christina, did that get posted online too? Okay, good, thank you. So the highlighted section. So wherever it said the square foot living area of a one-family dwelling, we've now added the words and any conditioned accessory structures shall not be more than 5,999 square feet. And it exclude, and then where the exclusions came in is the following: unconditioned structures, porches, breezeways, attached garages, and basements. So that's been substituted in for the A, AA, and C residential sections of the law. So I thought that was good. And Stephen, I don't think that that's a big enough change to this that we have to re-public hear this.
No, again, it's a clarification. The definition of SFLA is clear that it doesn't apply to those. And, Pam raised a good point that it wasn't crystal clear in the legislation. So we just clarified that there's no substantive change to the law.
And then the other comment that was brought up was that this was not addressing non-residential users. However, that's, I believe, to be a separate topic because this was dealing with greater than 6,000 square foot homes. And that's why we set the moratorium.
Specifically
Specifically,
residential. Yeah.
Yes, was specifically, we're addressing residential. So we should put on the list whether or not what we want to do with respect to commercial, non-residential entities.
Yes.
Yes, I think that's a different conversation completely if we're gonna do commercial stuff.
Yeah, which I think it also like special permit, site plan review. I think, I know, Stephen, I think you recently started to send us some stuff on site plan review, an application on that. Did it come from you or did that come from? I know I saw
I have
something,
some
unless I
stuff.
just dreamed it.
No, I have
No,
some
I
information
sent,
on site
no,
plan
no,
review.
yeah, I sent you an email suggesting that the town board look into broadening the scope of what triggers site plan and to include all non-residential uses that would, because right now it just says any business needs to go through the site plan
Yes.
process.
Yes, that's right,
It's
okay.
and it's too limiting, so all non-residential uses should have to go through site plan.
Okay, so as we're going through that, let's add Kim Nolan's comments about the physical, expansion stuff to make sure that it's covered under that.
Yeah, because right now it's just special permit to expand the pre-existing non-conforming use. So you may want to discuss making that, I guess, area variances if they want to expand, or maybe use variances. So that's a long topic, and so I think it should be segmented out by itself.
Okay. So with respect to this, I think with the changes that Stephen made this morning, that we are pretty good to go. as noted in the last top agenda item, I would like to hold off, like not adopting this at the next meeting, but queuing it up with these other potential legislative changes.
For June.
Yeah, so I mean, like normally, let me just go back here. Since we have the public hearing on April 15th, normally we would adopt this on May 6th. Yes, yesterday. What did I
So-
say? Yeah, the public hearing.
So we could
Oh,
do it
yeah.
on April 15th.
Oh, no, yesterday was April 15th.
Okay, never mind.
So May
I'm
6th we
still in
could
March.
adopt, but I kind of wanted to wait to see, because on May 6th, we're having the public hearing on the pyramid law. Pie in the sky dream is that we would set the public hearing on proportionality, because we have until June 24th to lift the moratorium. So I want to make sure we hit that date, but if we could queue this up so that we adopt everything at the same time before we lift the moratorium, and then ZBA starts receiving new applications, I would like to have at least 2 or 3 legislative changes to coincide so that they're operating all applications under one set of new rules.
So if that's the idea, then do we have time to also maybe modify this to eliminate the minimum square foot allowed and then rehear it?
Yeah, because let me just look at my little
Because-
calendar
Like
here.
that.
So May 6th, we would set the public hearing, and then June 3rd, we would have that public hearing,
Mm-hmm.
and then we could adopt on June 24th.
We could do it.
I mean,
Yeah.
I would
mean-
like
We're all,
that.
we're all okay with that.
Okay,
I mean,
So-
if.
So you're not anticipating reopening the hearing on the SFLA. You're talking about a new amendment just to address that 850.
Right.
Yes.
because if we decide not to do, like, if the public outcry at the public, if the public hearing is, no, don't get rid of the minimum, we can fall back to this draft.
Right.
Mhm.
Or is that too messy because you're editing the same document with 2 different things?
Yeah, I don't know. Can we wait? I don't think the tiny home is that urgent. Is it possible we can wait on that one? Or,
No one even wants to build a tiny house.
I was gonna say, we're not community housing.
Let's do this.
Okay, community housing.
Let's do this.
Mhm.
Just push it through. Well, they're not gonna build it tomorrow anyway, but we want to be ready for that.
Okay, so would it be, we could adopt this at the May 6th meeting and then set the public hearing to amend this?
Yeah.
yeah, I think that, we got to this
Yeah.
point, we had a public hearing, it was successful, like we can go forward and adopt it and then do the other, like we could set a public hearing at that point to do it. It's not really changing the law we just changed, it's a separate and distinct issue. So I think we can do that. And that would be my recommendation, to put this one to bed. We went through the process and then I can draft something up for the tiny home.
Okay,
Okay.
and there's no pressure for us to lift the moratorium because we've adopted this piece.
Well,
It
no,
doesn't-
no. There is no, it expires when it expires.
Okay.
So we're still under the moratorium.
Okay,
And it doesn't take effect till it's officially filed with the Secretary of State. And, but again, I don't think the companion, for any of the SFLA applications that were pending, I don't think the pyramid would even be applicable. So it's not,
No.
even if the moratorium was lifted and we now have this new SFLA, it's of no moment really with the pyramid or the substandard lot.
Correct.
law.
oh.
Yeah, they
okay.
were all on oversized
Okay.
lots,
Okay.
except for one. Winthrop,
Through.
I'm not familiar with that.
5 Winthrop, that, we got that one maybe a year and a half ago. It was for an accessory structure.
Okay,
I'll show you these.
okay, all right.
I know that
Okay,
one.
so this is under.
But also, so we'll do the tiny home amendment separately.
Yes.
On that same time frame, Because the reason the timeframe is important is because Community Housing Board needs the plan,
Right.
and the
Mhm.
RFP is about to go out.
Mhm.
Yeah, but they're, okay, because you're saying the dwelling unit size.
Yes.
Is complicated, and no, I think they were gonna ask for a variance for that anyway, but.
Right. They're planning on it, but
Yeah.
then they wouldn't necessarily
Yeah,
have
if
to
we
get a
can,
variance.
yeah,
Take it
if
away.
we can give them
Yeah.
one less variance to 4. Okay, all right, so I'm putting the tiny home into the hopper here. Okay,
Good to adopt May 6th.
so we're good to adopt this May 6th. Okay. Yeah. I mean, we still have next week if for some reason when Albert's back and he reviews the public hearing, if he has any comments or anything like that, we can discuss that next week. Check in with him when he's back. All right, so the large house moratorium is adopt, reject here, okay. All right, so that is the large home legislation discussion.
Yeah,
Okay,
what's next?
dock fees. Okay, so papers in order here. Okay, so we had gotten a letter from the WMAC that's basically asking us to revisit the fees that were put in place last year.
Yes. I wasn't here for that conversation.
Yeah, it was
Sure why.
adopted in December. It was resolution 411 last year. Do you remember the date on that, Christina? What meeting that was?
Was it purely a revenue issue or was there a
No,
reason?
actually, I have some notes. Here we go. Okay, so this was brought about, the 2 WMC liaisons from last year were here. And so they worked on it together. Unfortunately, the three of us.
They're not here.
The 3 of us were not one
We
of
were in
those 2
WMAC.
liaisons.
We were not involved.
Yeah,
No.
so, but, so my, reviewing the discussions that happened at the time was, and it didn't get brought to the WMAC because it is under the fees, the setting of fees across all, all over the place is the purview of the town board. We have to do the resolutions. Sometimes we will consult like planning board and ZBA. They may weigh in because they have to hire attorneys, engineers, environmentalists, things like that. So they may say, no, our fee should be set at this because we need to pay for this. For WMAC, these kinds of fees go into a bucket of money, and so it's the town board that decides, like, this is what the revenues get used for.
Okay.
So some of the things that went into play last year was that when someone is applying for a dock, they're getting a permanent lease to the town bottoms, which interferes with the community's, enjoyment. And that became a bigger talking point on the Prager dock application last year, which I think was part of why, this started to get discussed. In looking at, like, people say, oh, if I have a dock, my property tax assessment is going to go up. But the cost, I don't think it's fully reflected in the assessments, but that's a question that we can go back to the assessor's office and just double check with them to say, okay, this person put in a dock last year. How much did their assessment go up? Like, what are they paying for it? Further discussion is you build a house, you also have the garage, you may have accessory sleeping quarters above the garage or on a separate, building. Docks are another luxury item for a waterfront property, and we were charging a $250 fee. And that was it, like, for this huge luxury item. Granted, they have to construct the dock, but back to permanent lease on town bottom. And the decision was made, they looked at East Hampton and Southampton. I think they looked at both their, Yeah, to see how were those fees, and that was one of the pieces of paper that I gave to you earlier. So I've given to you the resolution from last year as well, how we were setting fees, and you can see it was part of a bunch of different things. But if you look at the Southampton fee structure, and I meant to highlight it, but if you go to page 2 of this resolution to amend Board of Trustees fee schedules 2024. The second page, if you look at what their docs would cost, you get a general permit application fee of $600. Then further down under general permit type, fixed dock per square foot of surface area is $15 per square foot. And then there's a piling, per piling includes posts and piles securing a floating dock and tie-off poles, $25 per fee. So that's more normal for surrounding waters versus our flat 250. And I'm like, I did vote in favor of it last year, but I'm just like, this is how we got there. So if someone was to build a 100 square foot dock in Southampton, just plain vanilla, no stairs, no, walkways, anything like that. A quick calculation from Southampton would be you'd have your basic fee of $600. 100 square foot dock generally has 30, 100 feet long. Yeah, 100 feet long, sorry. Pilings would require 34 of them, so at $25 a pop, that's $850. And then 100 feet by 5 foot, there we go, is a 500 square foot surface area at $25 per square foot is $7,500. So that dock in Southampton will cost $8,950. Our fee structure was a flat application fee of $1,000 versus the $600, and then not bothering with the 100 by 5 foot calculation, just counting pilings. 34 by 100 would be $3,400. So Shelter Island fee would be $4,400. So yeah, it is a huge increase, $4,400 versus $250. But I think it's been 20 years plus, maybe. I'm not 100% sure when the last increase.
And it's a huge benefit to the property.
Yes, yes, and it's a one-time, any repairs that are more than 10,000 is a $500 fee, if I remember correctly.
Under 10,000.
It's what?
Under 10,000 dock repairs.
Yes, 500, yeah. So that was the thinking, and so the two WMAC liaisons worked on it and did the homework and, looked at all of this. We went with a number of pilings because it was just easier to calculate. And also that's where the environmental impact takes place as far as like you're putting something into the ground.
Is that a problem for the town clerk?
No, the only issue I have is if the application gets revised, that changes. So what I've been doing is keeping the $1,000 application fee and then the piling fee separate until we figure that.
Okay, and when it's, when the dock is built, the building department goes in and does a final inspection. And so they have been given marching orders to like compare the plans with as-built and do a piling count to take back to the town clerk so that she can do a final calculation.
Okay.
So that's the history. Now I want to just go back to the WMAC's letter. Just to see, what the comments were. So, yeah, so it was saying repairs, $125 to $500, new construction from $250 to $1,000 plus $100 per piling. So it represented a 300 increase as a base and an approximate 1,660 percent increase in the dock fee when considering the pilings. And so, actually, I think they had the same exact calculation. But, yeah, 4,400. Okay, good. That's correct there. The WMAC felt that this 1,660% increase or more in town fees was unreasonable and difficult for the town clerk to manage because of the piling fee clause. The clerk has to estimate the number of pilings from the drawings, and then it has to be confirmed by the building inspector after consideration, then back to the clerk, and finally the applicant. This is an onerous burden on the town clerk, building inspector, and the applicant. We also do not promote skimping on construction.
Well, I guess they're implying that giving a fee per piling is gonna make people put in fewer pilings.
Mhm.
But if you're building your own dock, you're gonna make sure that it's built well.
Yeah, that it'll withstand the weather.
Yeah. Well, especially since we're starting to put in clauses where if more than 50% of the dock gets destroyed by natural causes, then we're not going to let you put it back again
Mhm.
in those hard,
Troublesome areas.
yeah.
So they're proposing that we stick with the flat increase of
Yeah.
300%, but not charge for the pilings unless they are tie-off pilings or dolphins.
Right, yes. So that would change the calculation we did, which was just a basic one, so that would just be $1,000.
Yeah, you lose the 3,400.
Yeah. And then the WMAC would like to encourage repair and maintenance of water structures as supported in the town code. Therefore, we are recommending keeping the repair fee at $125. It was agreed that the existing 10,000 repair threshold for requiring a permit remain the same.
That makes total sense.
Keeping the repair fee at
Keeping the repair fee at
125.
125.
My only comment on that would be is just doing a deeper dive to find out when the 125 was set and just inflation adjusting it.
Reasonable as well.
Just because, I mean, we,
Very long time ago.
I was gonna
Yeah.
say, like, 20 years ago.
yeah, I mean, just, yeah, and also, I mean, there is, like, I think there has been discussion about the bay constables. Yeah, they went from harbor master to bay constable, make sure I get the terminology right. Just getting them a little bit more involved in the process.
Yeah.
So that would entail a little bit more work, and also $125 for an inspection isn't really covering our labor costs on that, and, administrative with, the applications and things like that.
But the thinking behind this is, I think, correct, which is we want to make this easy for people to say yes to and fix their docks.
Yes, yes, definitely. And then maintenance dredging typically ranges from an annual to 10-year event and should have a fee schedule consistent with repairs at $125.
What do we charge for dredging? I don't think we modified that in this last resolution.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I didn't,
A question.
So what do we?
yeah, what is
do we
what is the
charge for
fee for
dredging?
dredging?
It was your typical 125, I believe that went after. Under
Say that again, louder.
$725 for dredging.
Okay. Okay, again, my recommendation would be
Inflation
inflation
adjusted.
adjusted,
Yeah.
yeah. But,
Less sympathetic to that one, only because they're dredging to get access to their own dock. So.
right, yeah, but what do we feel about the fee structure, given the history and the thought process and comparables?
It's hard to look at $3,400 and say, oh, just strike that off.
Yeah, I did look at the budget to see whether or not we had incorporated the additional fees, and this happened after budget season, so at least, so for 2024, it will help our budget, but it won't, we won't be, we weren't banking on it. However, the calculation from the year before on some of the mooring fees, where that was like layering in, didn't come to fruition the way our rough and dirty calculations had. So this was going to help offset a little bit of that loss, because I do try and monitor the waterways accounts.
Is there another way to look at this? Because $100 per piling, it's, the number of pilings isn't really affecting our costs, so to speak.
Well, a little bit of that was that there was a little piece too where we're getting more applications that exceed the 100 feet of dock. And so it was just a little bit of a, stick, like, no, it's going to cost you more if you go for that 150-foot dock, asking for that variance.
Well, then penalize the amount over 100 feet.
Okay.
And, you know, you can even hit that a little harder.
Hmm. We get, how many new dock applications a year? Is it like 7 a year? How many do you think? Like,
You can ask someone on the WMAC.
mhm.
Not that many.
Depends on the year, but
Yeah.
And I feel like it's an investment and an asset for your property. I mean, it's a one-time purchase of something that you have for decades. Then you just do basic maintenance every once in a while. But it does obstruct public's use of that space for as long as it exists. So
Mhm.
I kind of feel like it's a fair trade-off.
Mhm.
Um,
I have no idea. What does it cost to put in a 100-foot dock?
I don't know.
James?
Yeah.
I think there's less change in 2000.
So $1,000 a foot?
2012?
12.
I mean, that's sort of what it is, like bulkhead.
Yeah,
It's somewhere around there, maybe 80 to 100,000.
I mean, because you're willing to make that kind of investment.
So-
That's a significant,
Yeah, the 4,000.
you're really planning
It's not
for
very
it.
good.
It's- Yeah, it's,
Additional cost then.
Mhm.
it's not something you do lightly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I hate to say this, but yeah, this is not so terrible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I didn't have a problem with it last year. I'm fine with it.
So if we're speaking new applications without the repair, just the new, 2020, we had about 5, 2021, we had about 3, 2022, we had about 5, and 2023, 8. We're not high numbers.
James, you're on the WMAC, you had something, you want to come up and?
Rationale, to some degree about the fees, you know, are they fees covering our costs? You know, the mooring fees going up was, you know, they said it was a user fee, but it's more like a tax because it was covering other things besides things related to moorings. And then this dock fee thing is covering other things related, you know, beyond what's related to docks. And we felt that, okay, some increase was warranted, of course. You know, the piling thing, you know, we thought it was a little onerous. I mean, are you counting, you know, if somebody builds a really nice dock and they put 2 pilings, you know, like for ice and whatnot under the dock, so are they set 2, 4, 6, 8, you know, or are you encouraging them to, you know, not put that second piling, you know, in conjunction with the, you know, the dock piling that you see? Sometimes there's another piling next to it underneath. You know, is that 2 pilings or 1 piling? You know, it gets, you know, a little, you know, who's counting all these pilings? You know, I think maybe a square foot thing is the feeling that, you know, was, you know, and the reality is we're trying not to grant docks over 100 feet, you know, unless there's a compelling reason, you know, to do it.
You do get some people who have docks that are less than 100 square feet, so that may even be.
Right, you know, shouldn't we give them credit, you know?
Yeah.
But, you know, so the increase was, you know, a fair amount. Yeah, so you're spending 100,000, why shouldn't the town get a little more? Well, there's a good reason. I think that, you know, you should pay for what the dock uses, you know, plus every year they're getting taxed on it, you know? And yes, it's town bottom, but it's bottom right in front of your property. You know, and as long as, you know, it doesn't impede navigation and whatnot, you know, it's probably okay.
I like the square footage argument you just made, though. That seems to make the most sense.
I mean, it's easier, you know, to just figure it out. And I mean, yeah, the dock is 5 foot wide by 100 foot long. It's pretty easy. But that was the whole thing. I mean, people were already getting taxed on when they added a dock. And, you know, we thought you should minimize what the amount is that we're going to charge them, you know, based on the fact, you know, whatever it is related to the monitoring costs of the dock and the review, things like that. The town shouldn't be making money on people putting docks in.
Like as you said last year, because you've run it for us, I didn't, this number doesn't bother me. It's the math that bothers me.
Well, and that's, I mean, that falls on the town clerk and,
Yeah,
you know, what, like, do you,
if we could simplify the math and get somewhere close to this, it's easy to manage, it's easy to,
Mhm.
what do you think, Amber?
It's not hard to count, but like James said, some people put pilings underneath, and in the
Right.
plans, it's not really specified.
Well, no, they do, in the plans it shows it, if they're, you know.
But on the
plans are done,
application,
it
they can
shows
just
a
write
piling like that.
Whatever they want.
You know,
I mean, I
this
can
is just
count,
required
it's either
for, you know,
way.
I know the building
You
department
guys
will be
decide and I
responsible for
adjust.
this, but they're already overburdened, it appears to me.
Well, the square footage calculation doesn't penalize people for building a strong dock or the dock that they want.
Right, you know,
It just says it's this big and this is what it costs and you can build it how you want.
and then going back, the keeping the, maybe adjusted for inflation, the repairs, we were thinking that, you know, there's, you know, it's people's, you know, lives progress, you know, they may have less and less need to use the dock and more need just to let it go. And if we make it easier to do, to keep it repaired, we thought that seemed like it.
That makes sense.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that one.
Yeah. So I just put in the CPI inflation calculator from January 2012 to March of 2024. It would be, the 125 would be $172. So,
Okay. So how do we move this forward then?
well, it's just a matter of whether or not,
Al
I was gonna say,
recommends the end.
yeah, with that, Al, and I was also gonna open it up to the public, since this is not legislation, it's a resolution. So
Oh.
Al, we'll call on you first.
Thank you. I like the way that this is moving. I think it's really, it makes a little more sense. The 1,600% increase was, you know, it was just seemed like a lot. And it also seemed like with everybody's workload increasing so much, to have the town clerk do the math and check with the building inspector and come back, it just seemed like, why are we adding this amount of work for a dock? So I think a one set fee just seems to make a lot more sense. The numbers, the $3,400, I have to say is very, very conservative on a 100-foot dock. And speaking to a number of people, they just said typically you're going to use 3 pilings on going out 100 feet. It's so it can become much higher. And the other thing is the dock could be denied, and the person is out that amount of money, and plus the amount of money to file for the permits, to get the hydrographic survey. Typically, you're into just permits. You're into about 8 to 10 grand at today's prices to do a dock. So I just, I think it needs to be considered all the way around. And the other thing, a dock, when we put something in resolution, it affects all of these things: the dredging, the bulkhead, the groins, other items. And a dock is typically a 30-year event. It should, under normal circumstances, a dock should last about 30 years before the pilings start to get eaten and needs to be replaced. Dredging, like maintenance dredging, excuse me. It's in my case, I have to dredge about every 5 years. I have to do a maintenance dredge. So it should be a lot more reasonable than the fee for a dock.
Yeah. Yeah, so
So
the only thing we were proposing there is taking it from 125 to like maybe 170 or 175.
totally rational and totally livable.
Mhm.
So I,
So Al, you're suggesting going with a flat fee or going with measuring square footage rather than pilings?
you know, we're pretty much limiting docks to 100 feet and 200 feet on the float. That's pretty much the standard. In outside waters, we have typically allowed up to 125 feet, and that's it. So, I mean, there's really kind of two standards. Some people build them shorter and smaller, but that's not common. You know, so the sizes are pretty much standard. So you need to think what you want out of it. And to me, what would make the most sense for you guys is just to come up with a number so that you don't have to do calculations, you don't have to go back and check, you don't have to go back and recheck, involve the town clerk, the building inspector, and back.
Al, is there a limit on how large your floating dock can be?
Yes, it's 200 square feet.
Okay, thank you.
You know, and then if you go with square feet, and then does the ramp count, does the aluminum ramp count? You know, there's so many little,
Right.
And Al, in your opinion, James here, sitting right here, would it make any sense at all to have whatever fee we decide on, to have 25% on application and the other 75% due when it's granted? Because Al was saying that
Right. Sometimes it might not get granted.
it might get denied and then they're out the whole pile of money.
right. Or the other, absolutely, I mean, that's certainly rational. Or just don't cash the check until the person has been.
I've been doing with the pilot, I'm not cashing the check until
Until it's done,
it's
yeah.
done.
Well, that's another thing you have
There's
to
a
manage.
moratorium.
It's just-
Mhm.
Yeah, we haven't done any.
But also, I mean, by just processing the application, there is time and expense to
Right.
the administration. So,
Right.
you know, charge 25%, cash that check. And, you know, if they get denied, you know, everybody goes home. And if they get approved, then they need to send us another check for 75%. I just made those numbers up.
That's fair.
Yeah.
What is the typical width of a dock? Is it 4 feet or 5 feet?
5 feet.
5 feet? Okay. That's what I thought.
Wouldn't that be a bad precedence for like a building department as well?
What?
What do you mean?
Charging 75% and then 25%.
I think it would make it challenging.
Flat and stuff.
Yeah. So, let's see,
Well, regardless, you have to pay the application fee.
right.
Right.
So if the number is $5,000,
Mhm.
$1,250 is due an application. The rest is due upon approval.
Mhm.
So I did some quick math. If you did as a standard, if you're looking at like square foot calculations, I just did $5 a square foot.
Mhm.
So if you do $5 a square foot for a 5 by 100 foot dock, it's $2,500. And then I figured if you count the float, because that's,
Mhm.
you know, a 200 square foot float, that's $1,000. Then you have the flat permit fee, which is $1,000, that's $4,500 for a dock application. Isn't that almost what we had before?
Mhm.
And that's just a flat.
Mhm.
In,
So we're not making it flat for everybody, we're making it based upon square footage.
well, I was just gonna say that could
Oh,
just be
or
the
just
flat
be the
fee
flat
based
fee.
off a
Yeah,
standard
that's
type
what I
of
think.
dock
Mhm.
with the float.
Well, the flat fee seems like it does make a lot of sense.
Mhm.
And this number is not a crazy number,
Right.
be it 4,400, be it 5,000.
So the application fee stays 1,000 and then 4,000 upon approval.
Yeah. They can put all the pilings in that they.
Yes. Mhm.
I had 3,500 possible.
Okay.
The way I did it was a little
They
cheaper.
don't have a float though.
Well, yeah, and then if they don't have a, do you want to give a discount if there's no float?
That's up to them.
But then they might have walkways and stairs and,
They can build it how they want to build it.
yeah,
They're basically paying us for
yeah.
the
Mhm.
underwater rights, the
Yes,
seafloor.
yeah.
And the float is not even on the seafloor, so.
Right.
Then I come up with 3,500.
In my head, I have to base it off of something like
Yeah, something solid. So I'm trying to figure out a way that, because you want to be able to justify it and you want to be able to defend it. So I'm trying to figure out a way to.
Well, this is it right here, because they're saying it's 4,400. Because this is the standard kind of thing that they see all the time,
Right.
which is 100 feet and 34 pilings. And I think they're even saying that 34 pilings is pretty light.
Mhm.
So we really are looking at 4,400 to 5,000.
Right.
So just call it 5,000.
Mhm.
Use this math. Says the man who doesn't live on the water.
I don't live on the water. Well, we can run the idea past Al and see what he thinks.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. I think this makes sense. Are you guys okay with it, Al and James?
Still a big increase, but
Yeah.
Yeah, I like the way it's moving.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I think $4,400, $5,000 for a brand new dock is reasonable, is reasonable.
Yeah.
But,
and-
you know, just to keep it as simple as possible for your own housekeeping, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
It's,
Yep. And so we'd be
you know, and
taking,
keep the repairs, you know, so that you encourage the people to do repairs, not to, you know.
Right.
You know, and Amber,
Yeah.
another thing that you had mentioned is that you know that the last two docks that were approved, you guys, you know, you did something, you said that, you know, that they can't be rebuilt if they're taken out by a storm. I just don't think that that's rational to do on a regular basis. I mean, you get these, I mean, look at Sandy. I mean, Sandy wiped out a tremendous number of things. And to say, well, that's it.
Yeah, they do it or you're done.
Mhm.
Either agree to it or you're done.
yeah, I mean,
We don't
like,
have to
yeah,
agree to
I mean, that was sort of a compromise on Prager because WMAC recommended no dock there. And the board was split on it. Or at least I was.
So
So it's not necessarily going to apply to all docks.
No,
Just in ones.
we've only done it
Yeah.
on 2 docks. One dock is in a location where it's really rough and there's a high probability that it shouldn't be there anyway because of how rough it gets. And they already had some issues with that dock and boats flipping and things like that. So, you know, that was kind of a condition for that.
Mhm.
You know, because then that's proof that it really just shouldn't be there. And then Prager, I think, is more of a compromise, but
Yeah.
and everybody knows it shouldn't be there. It's not a
Right.
surprise.
so we don't have anything that really made it.
Yes, but hopefully
Yeah,
Change.
hopefully it won't be part of the, you know,
yes,
Right.
exactly.
So you'll
Hopefully we'll
take
be
care of it
fixing
with
that.
the
So
new-
then we won't need to put that condition in because.
Right,
working on it.
you're working on it, you guys are working
Yes.
hard on it.
So it'll be discussed with Al, that it's kind of flat fee, 5,000,
Mhm, yes. We'll change
1,000
the
up
dock
front or whatever the
application
number
fee,
is. Yeah.
you know, 5,000. We'll have to,
Ground
is it
fund pool,
1,500 versus 35, like,
Yeah.
you know.
Figure out how much it,
15 to
Upon
35
application,
upon
yeah.
approval, it's
Yeah.
fine.
Exactly, and then we will change the dock repair application from
So-
500 down to 175.
Yeah, and also for the dredging.
Yes, and we'll put in something, yeah, for dredging, yeah, we'll change the dredging, because it
175.
wasn't even in this one.
yeah.
great.
Okay.
Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Awesome.
Is there anyone in the public, since this will be via resolution, who wishes to speak on this? So it's unlike legislation where we have public hearings, this does not go to public hearing.
Thank
All
you.
right, so we will move on to board member reports.
Let's start with me.
Yeah, I was gonna say, just need to bring up the calendar for a second here,
Yeah,
just because I was away and then I was out another day. Just right here. Yeah, I think most of the meetings I was watching after the fact, so I'm presuming I haven't gotten to that part of the meeting yet.
Too many weeks. I was like, why does it look like?
Yeah, so it'll be from the 10th into the, yeah, so community housing board, somebody would have gone to.
that'd be me.
Yeah, I haven't watched that one yet.
Great meeting on April 11th. Fairly uneventful. There isn't a lot of new news there. There's just the work that's going on. I mean, they're reopening the ADU. They talked about reopening the ADU application process in June with an info session for the public set for May, oh boy, the date, I think it was May 6th or 5th.
Yeah, I think it's a Sunday, right?
Yeah.
That would be May 5th.
May 5th. So that is all in the works. The RFP draft has been circulated and they are looking for comments. They're looking into funding county financing for any contractors that would answer the RFP. That's just very preliminary. The lawyer has been engaged.
Yeah, I signed those, yeah, I signed that this morning. Mhm.
It looks like they have some money in the bank now,
Mhm.
about, what, 600,000?
Yeah, I was gonna say 500,000 starting to approach 600,000. I
Yeah.
got saw that number twice internally.
And they discussed the sites, but we all know what the sites are. South Ferry, well, down by Historical Society, next to the IGA, and then across from the Manor on Manwaring. And they went through the possible designs for the different units. And that was kind of about it. Like I said, there wasn't a lot of new news, so.
Oh, and I pulled it up, it's in the, I have it in the calendar. The Community Housing Board open house is going to be Sunday, May 5th, 1 to 3 p.m. at the Center Firehouse.
Great. Tell your friends.
Yes.
What else do we got?
That's 1 to 3, you said?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Check the open. My Outlook. What else is in the calendar? Until I find my.
Yeah, there weren't, I mean, there was planning board and CBA, but
Yeah.
So WAC was yesterday. Jason Heim from the Department of Health and Environmental Services was here and gave a talk about water quality on the island and some testing that they've done. And was also just reminding us that Suffolk County Department of Health Services will do a water test at your house for $100. And it's a comprehensive test. It covers everything. If you want to see some really good information, I recommend watching that meeting from yesterday. he had a lot of good statistics and some information on the EPA's new change in the PFAS regulations in drinking water. So historically, I believe the EPA regulation was 70 parts per trillion allowed in drinking water, and they have dropped that down to 4 parts per trillion because PFAS and that whole family of chemicals, and it's hundreds of chemicals, are very, very prevalent, and they also do not go away. They're forever chemicals, so they build up in your body over time. So, and there's a lot of studies that show them to have negative health effects. So the EPA is really trying to regulate how much is a bit like in your drinking water. So it's very beneficial for everybody to get their water tested on an annual basis is what he was promoting. And you can have that done through the health department for $100, which is a great deal. And it's a really comprehensive test. So I would encourage everybody to do that. The WAC is having a talk at the library about the water tests that were done in the Center Triangle. And that is Sunday, May 5th at 5:30. And that's just to kind of go over the results that we got.
So the library's gonna open up for us?
Mhm.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, 5:30. 5:30. And so that's coming up. And then I had a discussion with Joanne Sherman from the Senior Foundation. And she had a request that we consider having a discount rate for seniors, maybe for seniors who also qualify for the STAR program, because some seniors don't have a problem in the Project Fit rates, but some seniors do, and it would be nice to make it so that it's kind of available to everybody. Because we do offer discount rates for college students and volunteer fire EMS and youth. So she was wondering if there'd be a way for us to do a reduced rate for seniors, maybe with certain qualifications. So that's just something that maybe we could look into. And then what else did I have?
Find seniors.
That's an excellent question.
Me.
So,
Say,
you
you need to be
know,
higher than 60.
so we could, it's something we could maybe think about, or, and if we want to combine it with other qualifications, like if you qualify for the STAR program, maybe then you qualify for reduced, something like
Oh, I like
that.
that.
So
Yeah.
then, it's also kind of based on a need or, there's other conditions, not just, because that's probably the majority of our people who go to the Fit Center qualified seniors, just because of the statistics of our island.
Yeah,
The age
exactly.
demographics on our island kind of lean towards
Yeah.
that. So, so maybe we can come with some kind of qualifications.
Yeah. Yeah, I like
I
that.
feel like I had one more thing, but I, for the life of me, cannot remember it, and I didn't write it down. So, yeah, good.
Yeah, I'm good.
And then there's ZBA tomorrow. It's a work session. Yeah, green option on Thursday.
Oh, last Tuesday, wasn't that much.
I was gonna say for the housing thing, so ETIP is working on their energy resiliency grant. So what I did was I provided them with the site plan for 12 South Ferry, so they can do a re-op analysis on it, like an energy efficiency analysis for maybe solar or things like that. So they're gonna include that in the ETIP grant, because housing was asking about, kind of what they could do to make it more energy efficient or green or whatever. So we're kind of including that concept into the ETIP grant.
Yeah, at the CHP, I asked if there was the conversation was happening, and they were very excited about it.
Yeah, so I've looped them in. But yeah, so that's it.
Yeah, I didn't have anything.
And this Saturday is the Be Relove 2024 benefit at the community center. It's a fashion show and clothing sale. So that's from 1 to 3 on Saturday, the 20th at the community center. Fun times.
That's about that.
And that's all I got on my notes.
Amber, do you have anything? Stephen?
No, thanks.
Right, it wasn't on the agenda, but I did want to go into executive session to discuss a potential property acquisition. So,
Sounds good. I'll make a motion.
Okay,
okay,
so Stevens, do we need him? for
we
that?
need, yes, we need
He'll
him for that.
hang on.
Yes. Yeah. All right, that's it. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.